I started to think about this video right as the holidays were getting over with, so food was pretty fresh on my mind. It's been a few months now, but food is always relevant, so I'm still going to talk about it. The struggles of being vegan. Let me know whether you're vegan, vegetarian, allergic to gluten, whatever, if you experience any of these things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to start with the kind of petty reasons first, because the pettiest reasons are sometimes the most annoying. During the holidays, or kind of whenever I'm around family or a group of people, having to talk about my eating habits every year like it's a whole new thing and answering the same questions over and over again is really annoying. So like,
oh, you're vegan? Oh, I didn't know that. What do you eat?
Or they just completely forget that I'm vegan and push a little bit of mac and cheese. Oh, just a little bit. Or they just offer me steak every year, especially my grandfather is one to offer me steak. And then people give me incredulous looks when I remind them, no, I don't eat that. No, I don't eat that either. That has dairy in it. And I want to be polite, but I also know I would feel sick if I partook in those things, so I just have to say no. And it's just like a little frustrating every year. Of course, I didn't have to deal with it as much as last year with COVID and everything, but it's such a prominent thing, especially when around family or around other people during the holidays, especially since holidays are so centered around animal-based, foods. Another thing that's kind of annoying is forgetting to cook when you're going to go over to those houses, so it looks like you just eat salad, because I don't want people to think that vegans just eat salad. I want to bring over all sorts of goodies and show them, but the problem is I am really terrible at remembering to cook and remembering to bring my own food. So that's always a huge issue for me. Let me know if you experience that. My mom's the only one in my family who will actually eat something if I bring it, but everyone else is like, I don't want to try that. Which is fair, I guess, but I'm always kind of stuck in this weird, like, in-between place where I can't decide, should I cook for just myself, or will it be rude to bring food only for myself? But I also know that, like, no one else is gonna try the food if I make enough for everyone, like, enough for it to be worth it, you know what I'm saying? So I'm always stuck, but then I end up just forgetting to cook it at all, and so I'm left with just eating a salad. Kind of veering away from the holiday thing, speaking of salad, sometimes I want a salad, and restaurants don't know, like, what salad is. It seems like there's so many things you can put in a salad, so many things you can add, but it feels like restaurants only know how to put cheese, cucumber, and that feels like it in their salads with romaine lettuce. I personally like to make my salads with spinach, with all sorts of veggies, sprouts, dressing, sometimes two kinds of dressings, avocado, all kinds of fun things. And it just feels like restaurants don't know what a salad is. And it sucks because I want to go out and eat a salad, but I can't. And so I'm stuck just eating like fries or something like that. And it's really frustrating. But I mean, I guess it's good, well, I was gonna say, I guess it's good because then people don't think that all I eat is salad, but then all I'm eating is like fries or something. So I guess it's not, or just having a drink. So I guess it's not much better. But yeah, that's another thing that's kind of annoying about being a vegan. Kind of going back to the holiday thing again, another annoying thing about being vegan is Tofurkey, like the brand. They come out with some yummy, or like other things like that. They come out with yummy fake turkeys and things like that, and it's annoying for it to be sold out way before Thanksgiving or way before Christmas, and part of that's my fault because I'm just like unprepared and have ADHD, and so it's impossible to remember to be prepared, but still, that there doesn't seem to be an issue with a turkey shortage ever. It's always the Tofurkey or the plant-based options that are sold out whenever I try and go and buy one for like a holiday treat. This year I do have one in the freezer, and I am hoping it can make it till November, and it is currently May. So wish me luck on that. Otherwise, I suspect I will have to go without it again this year. And then another one that's unrelated to holidays, but also kind of related to holidays, but also just a general issue with being vegan, is people pushing their food on you, you declining, and then they keep pushing it on you until you tell them you're vegan, and then they get weirdly defensive, like,
Oh, I only eat this kind of stuff on holidays.
like, okay, I mean, I didn't ask, like, that's fine, I don't really care when you eat it. Some vegans might, but like, it just always feels really weird in that moment that they get defensive. Like, if you're feeling defensive, maybe you should look at your own eating habits and think why you feel the need to defend them. Like, I've never been judgmental, and again, I won't say anything. I only say I'm vegan because they keep pushing food on me until I decline, and they ask why, and I'm just answering to be polite. So that's another kind of weird thing, and then it kind of pushes people's own like issues onto me to deal with. Like, I don't really, like, do you, I guess. I don't know what you want me to say to that. Like, you only eat that stuff on special occasions. Good for you, I guess. Okay, another one. Couple of words. Cheese on everything. Milk powder on everything. You know, you other vegans or even vegetarians know when you go down a list of ingredients and you're like, yes, this thing's vegan, and you get to the last one and it's like milk powder. Or you read through ingredients and it doesn't sound like anything, and then you get to the allergens and it's like egg or something like that, and something you didn't catch. Oh, so frustrating. Especially because when it's the last ingredient on the ingredients list, not even under the allergens, just the last ingredient, it's like, couldn't that have been made without that, theoretically? I feel like I read somewhere that ingredients are listed in order of how much of that thing is in the food. And so if milk powder or whatever is last, that's the least of it in there. Also, sometimes I eat food when there's a perfectly good alternative, like Cocoa Whip. I feel like is just as good as whipped cream. People could argue, but I'm kind of like, why does there even need to be a dairy whipped cream? But that's my own, like, thoughts, on it. But anyways, so frustrating to have cheese on everything and milk powder and everything, like the salads at the restaurants that they ruin by putting cheese on. I could get it without, but they don't supplement it with everything. No restaurants have any vegetables as an alternative. If you're not like one of those toxic vegans, another problem with being vegan is having an unbalanced sense of self in regards to vegan identity. So some people are really hardcore, and I understand why, because they are advocating for the animals. So for me, it's hard because I do think that in this part of the world, we have a lot more access to vegan options, and we're a lot more educated, and we have a lot more availability to make good choices in terms of what we want to eat. However, I also work in social services, and I went to school for that kind of thing, and I know that it's not available for everyone. So some people live in food deserts where all they have near them is a gas station to grocery shop at and things like that. Or there's also the issue of like tribes having their own culture and hunting for whales, and maybe they live off of fishing, things like that. And I don't feel right having an opinion about that necessarily. I think that I do have an opinion on those things, but I don't think it's right necessarily for me to be making those decisions, because like I feel in most things, it's a slip. When you restrict something, it becomes a slippery slope in terms of not seeing the full picture. I'm a big picture person, so when someone starts to talk about veganism in terms of like, tribal people, shouldn't be whale hunting because of endangered species, whatever, I don't feel right talking on that issue. So it's hard to have this sense of self of, well, yes, I want to advocate for the animals, but I also want to stay in my lane as far as that goes. So right now, I'm just keeping the viewpoint of, I am in a privileged position where I can make choices for myself and encourage those around me by being a good example and a good influence. And that's, what I can do. So I don't agree with those who necessarily have an opinion where they can't have one. But yeah, either way, it's still hard having that unbalanced sense of self, I guess, in terms of your identity in such a controversial topic. Another issue that comes with veganism is seeing people use veganism as an eating disorder and knowing the difference between that and not an eating disorder, but not being able to kind of tell them about it, because it's like you can't say, oh, that's an eating disorder, that's disordered eating, but also I'm eating vegan too, because it seems really similar, but it's not. It's so hard to differentiate between that healthy eating or not eating for the animals. There's this one TikToker I'm thinking of who claims there's lots of TikTokers actually, and lots of people in general who claim to have recovered from anorexia or other eating disorders with veganism, which I don't know how I feel about that. I think in a way it can maybe help with some of that guilt around food, but I think if using that as your reason is a little bit tricky, and I think maybe if you can do so under like a supervision of a professional, that may be the case. But saying that veganism itself is what healed your eating disorder feels a little weird, especially when you're still showing patterns of disordered behavior. But it's a tricky subject, because going back to that sense of identity thing, you can't be flexible because you want to be firm in your beliefs, but at the same time flexibility is needed when it comes to healing from an eating disorder, if that kind of makes sense. It's hard to tell people when you see them clearly using it as an eating disorder, but you know the version of it that's not, and not being able to necessarily tell them. Another issue of being a vegan is people thinking you only eat carbs. This is at my grandma specifically, but I'm sure there's other people as well. I mean, it's hard being a larger vegan, especially because people might think I only eat carbs and stuff, but I mean, I've been fat for a long time way before I was vegan, and I definitely didn't eat carbs, only carbs before. I liked eggs and chicken and stuff. People, especially who are concerned about their weight and demonize carbs and like things like that and think carbs are bad, aren't going to want to turn vegan if they think all we eat is carbs. And I could see where they're coming from, especially if you only hang out with a vegan in a restaurant setting and see them only order fries or only order like a salad with only lettuce or whatever. You're only going to think they eat carbs, but it's just hard because you want to show them all the plant-based proteins. There's so many options, and people don't necessarily need as much protein as some people think, like unless you're training for something special. But it's just, it's frustrating, especially because there's just a misconception around carbs in general. Yeah, that's another frustrating thing. Speaking of being fat, and another hard thing about being vegan is being a larger vegan, a fat vegan, and hearing people talk about how they lost a bunch of weight when they went vegan for 5 seconds, or that's an exaggeration, but a couple months, and people thinking it's a weight loss thing. In some ways, I'm almost tempted to say, like, yes, that can happen, because then it would turn more people towards it, and it does happen for a lot of folks. But I want people to set people up with realistic expectations, because if they go into veganism thinking that's what's going to happen, and they don't lose any weight, then they're just going to quit it. But if they go into it with realistic expectations, they might stick with it. So I guess it depends on one's intentions. There are ways, of course, to go into it to help with weight loss, but those ways aren't usually very sustainable, in my opinion. So I think it's just hard because I don't want people thinking it's a weight loss thing. I want people to think that it's a moral and ethical choice and do it because they want to, not because they think they'll lose weight, if that makes sense. That last part was a little bit hard to understand, I think, maybe, but I just wanted to go over the things that are kind of annoying about being vegan. Again, it first came into my mind around the holidays, and it's been several months, and all these things still ring true. So again, if you have any sort of dietary restrictions or choices or things like that, let me know if you hear these things, especially if you're vegan or even vegetarian, because it would be nice to have someone to relate to. So let me know down in the comments. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you related to it, and I will see you guys later.